Hello, everyone. Welcome to Professor Messer's live Network Plus study group, the Network Plus study group that we do every month. And this month, we're now all the way through August, the very last day of August. I snuck it in there of 2013. It's very interesting that we're doing the Network Plus study group today. For those of you that have seen the A Plus materials that I have, or you've done the A Plus before, this is the very last day that you would be able to take the 700 series A plus exam. So I'm getting all kinds of emails this week of people that are doing that. The interesting part of that other piece that we are doing here on the Network Plus side is that it's the beginning of a school year. So I'm getting a lot of people that are just starting the course up. So I think this will be a very good study group to go through and look at some of the questions that you find when you first start looking at the Network Plus certification. So we will step through those pieces and have that in there as well. I think that's an interesting thing when you run into those scenarios and you're trying to determine what do I do next? Where do I start? What's the first thing? What's the second thing? This monthly study group is really sponsored by you. I appreciate you watching all of these videos that we have on the Professor Messer website. I, of course, have the A Plus and the Network Plus and the Security Plus, and there's some new Linux videos that I've started. There's a Microsoft 7680 Windows 7 course. There's all kinds of things going on. You can watch all of those, every minute of every video on my website for absolutely free. I give it all away for you to watch right on your screen. You don't have to pay for anything. You don't have to register. You just simply watch them. The entire course is there. Not parts of the course, not parts of the video, every single minute. And if you are in a case, though, that you'd like to get on a plane and watch these videos, you'd like to watch them when you're offline, you'd like MP3 versions of them, you'd like PDFs of all of the slides that I use in these presentations, you could actually buy the course. So that's sort of a premium type of package, but you can find that at professormesser.com/download-network plus. And of course, follow me, Twitter, follow me, Facebook, follow me, YouTube. You get to all of those with professormesser.com/Twitter/YouTube/Facebook. So easy to find me. And I try to put out interesting information every now and then. I'm getting a little better with some of those things. You'll be able to see that. And if you have joined us before, we do this every month. So there are some questions that I got last month that you might want to go back and look at the replays. All of the replays are also available at the bottom of the Network Plus video index, like questions that I had last week, like what is the difference between asymmetric and symmetric? What is, can you have two gateways to a single host? What's the difference between stateful inspection and packet filtering when you're in firewalls? Here's my address. Shouldn't that have a Class A subnet mask? Because it doesn't. What's a DMZ? What happens if you fail your exam? Can you take it again? How quickly can you take it again? What main area would you suggest your students concentrate on for the Network Plus exam? Some of these are frequently asked questions, so we won't be repeating ourselves this month, but you're welcome to go back and get questions answered like, should I receive my Network Plus before pursuing the Security Plus? You can always go ask those. Of course, if you are watching us live, I have the chat in front of me. If you go to professormesser.com/live and join us live, there's a chat at the bottom of every page of my website, and I'm watching the live Network Plus study group chat. So if you're on, for instance, the live YouTube side, there are comments there, but I don't get to see them during the live show. There, I only have two eyeballs, and they're both in different directions through the entire thing. But I will watch them on the professormesser.com site. I also have a toll-free number for you to use. If you go to professormesser.com/live, there's a toll-free number there. You can call in. You can leave and use Skype as well. It's a toll-free number, so no Skype minutes. So wherever you are in the world, you can call that number and be able to do that. And if you're watching this for some continuing education credits, this also applies. You would fill out this information and send it directly to CompTIA. I'm not involved in that process. They approve or disapprove any continuing education, but you can go out to the CompTIA website. There's a whole description of you participating in an industry event, a seminar, a workshop, a podcast/webinar, or conference. I think this would apply. So you could get an hour out of that, something to consider. And as I mentioned, there were a lot of people that are new to Network Plus. You've just started your classes. There are people that are just getting into the networking side of things. So I want to know from you, how long have you been doing this? Have you just started? Have you been studying for your Network Plus certification for a while? And throughout the the study group today, I'm going to ask you questions of this. So you'll pop open, maybe if you have your mobile device with you, or pop open another window and go to vot.rs, and you can go to number 972984. Now, if you have a QR code reader on your mobile device, you can simply go to that QR code that I have on the screen, and that will take you right to that particular view. So there's some interesting things when you start looking at who attends these, and it's different in different times of the year. A lot of the questions I got for this study group deal with getting into the certification. I did get some advanced questions as well, and we're going to go through kind of a mixture of different things. For those of you that are wanting to follow the study groups in the future, because we're going to do one of these every month, and if you're in a class now, maybe you'd like to follow along, I generally post the dates of these at professormesser.com/calendar. So if you go to vot.rs, we're starting to get respondents. I'm live here in my studio, but the challenge, of course, is that many of you are watching this live, and the stream takes a number of seconds for you to get there. So I often will be mentioning things in the chat room. Don't be dismayed if I don't get to you immediately, but you're probably going to hear it 30 seconds after I say it. So for those of you that have this Network Plus certification, let's bring up this screen so you can see it. There's the Network Plus certification. You're voting right now. The options, of course, are less than 3 months, 3 to 6 months, 6 to 9 months, 9 months to a year, and over a year. So you might want to look into what you can see along those lines. And I've got now 20 people that have responded, so it might be worthwhile to go in and have a look at that. Let's bring up just the list of these. I'm going to ask you questions later on. So see, we've got a nice mix there. And interesting how it's kind of in the middle. People, no, not so much. I think people took the summer off. We're not going to worry this. Now we're back into it, though. So we've got a lot of people that are 6 months or less, and quite a few of you over a year. So it's interesting how life gets in the way sometimes. You start doing your Network Plus certification, you start working on different things, and you find that often you got a lot of things going on. And you have to put it aside, then you have to come back again. So thanks for joining us, those who have been doing this less than 3 months. I have a lot of replays for you to go back and look at. It's at the bottom of the Network Plus video index on my website. And I've also got, of course, more of these that we'll be doing. So you're welcome to join us every month for these. Now, the Network Plus certification itself, I got some interesting questions, and I finally realized why I was getting this particular question. So one of the questions that came in is, what's new in the N10-005 Network Plus certification? I thought, what's new? This certification's been around since 2011, and it was actually released prior to December of 2011. It's been around for two years, and there's nothing new. It's been around for 2 years. But then I realized if you go to CompTIA's website and you try to download the objectives themselves list out the 004 series and the 005. So it almost looks like the 005 is brand new, but it really isn't. It's been out for a couple of years. It's got a lot of different things in it, some virtual networking, OSI model information. We've got some updated information. They update it every 3 years. One of the things that I find, though, is that they're updating it. And so I'd already said it's been 2 years. We can probably expect another year before the 005 goes away completely. There will obviously be an update somewhere in there if CompTIA stays true to what they've been doing in the past. So you may find that if you're studying right now for the 005, you're fine. You've got a year. You won't have to worry. There's always an overlap. If they do announce a new version, let's say CompTIA came out today and said, you know what, there's a new version, the 006, whatever the next one is going to be. They would say, but you can still take the 005 for 9 months, for 12 months. They have this very long ramp. So if you're already studying, it's okay. You got plenty of time to study up and finally take the exam. Now, of course, as I mentioned, the A+ exam retires today for the 700 series. There were a lot of people last minute. It's like we were doing our taxes here in the United States, that on April the 15th, that on the 14th, you realize I really should do my tax forms. And everybody was hurrying to get those done. A lot of people were able to get their certification in just under the wire. So that was great. But for Network Plus, you're good. You don't have to worry about it. Now, before we go to some of the exam content or the questions that I have come in. I do have someone who's been holding for about 15 minutes. So let's first go to the calls and see who's there. You are now here and on the phone. I can hear you back there. What's your name? What's your question? Oh, he's got the live stream up, and there's kids, and everybody's talking. And I'm going to put him back on hold. And we'll come back to you. Yeah, one of the challenges, as I mentioned, is there's that delay. So you're going to have to think about listening in on the Blog Talk Radio, because I am live here, and it's about a 30-second at least delay on that piece. But don't worry, I'll come back to you on the hold. I have a question for you. Don't answer this in the chat room. Do not answer this in the chat room. The question I have for you is, which layer of the OSI model is the routing layer? See how fun this question and answer piece is going to be. We can simply get your feedback. Go to vot.rs, number 556796. And the OSI model obviously is one of those things you have to know for your Network Plus certification. You have to learn that piece. So one of the things that you have to remember is what does what at what layer. There's a bit of memorization that goes on. There's a lot of theory in the Network Plus exam. And if you come from the A+, you'll find that there's a big difference in what you're expected to memorize on the Network Plus certification. And that's one of those things you run into. So if you go to vot.rs, you go to 556796, you could say the OSI model, which is the routing layer? Is it layer 1 physical, layer 2 data link, layer 3 network, layer 4 transport, layer 7 application? Got quite a few there. So in the chat room, do not answer this, or I will. There you go, 559796. I should have somebody just posting things in the chat room so you can link directly to it. So I appreciate doing all of those things. 556796 is the number. It'd be good to put the right number in the chat rooms. The idea behind the OSI model, of course, is there is a lot to keep in mind. There's a lot to remember for the OSI model. For us, we've got about 26 people. So let's see what we think the routing layer is and the verdict. Looks like I didn't fool very many people. 22 of you have said, oh, yeah, that's layer 3. We almost use this in terms where we're talking about layer 3 devices. And whenever we say that, we're always talking about routers. That's one of those things we often run into. A few of you said layer 2. Isn't layer 2 routing? Nope. Layer 2 is switching. So if we talk about switching or bridging, that's layer 2. And I do have a video that goes through the OSI model and the theory behind it, the structure of it. But then I also have another one that compares it to what we do in the real world. So if you look at a switch, that's a layer 2 device. If you look at a router, that's a layer 3 device. So those types of things. Let's now go to why I asked this question. The question that came in was, I am trying like, then James M sent this in. This is not me. It's a different James M. I am trying like crazy to study all of the cabling media, the ports, the OSI model, the acronyms, and it feels like my head is going to explode. Just how much of this do we have to be concerned with on the test? Seriously, there's a lot here. And as I mentioned with the Network Plus exam, a lot more memorization, a lot more details. What I tried to do, in fact, was go through and I just listed out very quickly. I went through the exam objectives and I listed out all of the things you would have to know. So you have to know cable standards like the speed, the links, the topologies, the cable types. This comes directly from the exam objectives. So this isn't a guess. This really is the things that you have to know on the exam. You have to know IP classes and subnetting, at least an introductory piece to the subnetting. You have to know network ports and applications, TCP and UDP specific ports. What port is SMTP? What port is HTTPS? You have to know LAN and WAN topologies. You have to understand T1, T3. You have to understand Ethernet, gigabit Ethernet, 10 gig Ethernet. And I imagine in the next version, those numbers keep going up and up and up. You have to know remote access protocols. You have to understand authentication and encryption type methodologies, especially for tunneling and VPNs. There's a lot to networking, and there's a lot of acronyms, and there's a lot of moving parts. So if you're someone who is going through the Network Plus exam, I would have to agree that there is a lot going on there. And that's one of the challenges that you're going to run into when you start getting really into this, is there's a lot that I have to worry about. Let's try the caller again. I'm going to flip over to that 516 number. Are you there, caller?
Internet. I imagine in
Boy, my audio sounds really good, though, doesn't it? I think maybe that caller's just listening in from the 516 area code. And we thank you for doing that. If you'd like to call in, I'll answer your question live. The number is on the bottom of the professormesser.com/live page. If you'd like to call in live, it's 855-235-4742. That's 855-235-4742. If you're obviously watching the replay, there will not be very much to call in on. So not much to concern yourself with there. One of the things that people have found really useful for memorizing all of these different pieces of the exam is that there's really a lot of things you can just put on a flashcard. So if you're someone who does really well with looking at flashcards and understanding the meaning of those, you can at least get the names of them. One of the challenges, though, with the Network Plus certification, and really this is the A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, the CASP certification, is you get more than just multiple choice questions. We will talk in a bit about the performance-based questions. So not only do you have to know what the acronyms mean, you have to apply them and how they work in the real world. That can be a little bit more of a challenge. Well, I have another question for you. So get your mobile devices ready. Do not answer this in the chat room. But the question is, which one of these devices or which one of these would be commonly stopped by an IPS? So I give you a list of things. It is a virus attack, a distributed denial of service attack, a database injection, or a malware phone home. Which of these would most likely, most commonly be stopped by an IPS? This is a little bit of a difficult question because an IPS these days almost has different meanings. So if you can think about the traditional use of an IPS, well, traditionally, what do IPS devices stop? And if you think about that, you can look at those options of virus attack, distributed denial of service, database injection, and malware phone home. And as you do that, I'm going to take a sip. I need music to play while this is happening. Don't have any music. Need to work on that. That VOT.RS, go to 547-827 to vote on that. So which one of it is? Is it a virus attack, a distributed denial of service, a database injection, a malware phone home? My caller isn't there. I was going to take the caller and see if the caller knew what the answer would be. If you think you know, call up right now. I'll take you on the line. You can tell me what the answer is. And then we'll go to the respondents that I have, and we can, of course, see what everyone else says. Don't say it in the chat room. That would be cheating. Of course, then we get to talk about why this is the way that it is. And of course, I wouldn't be asking the question if I didn't have some other question behind the scenes that someone has written in. You have all these different boxes when you get into networking. There's routers, there's switches, there's load balancers, there are IPS devices. Maybe it's an IDS device. Maybe it's another security content filter. Perhaps it's a proxy. You know, the poor networking folks, you have all of these teams show up, the server teams, and you have the networking teams, and has to talk to the network team. Then you have the security team has to talk to the networking team. Everybody has to talk to the networking team. You are the center of the world for the networking piece of this. And it's really a challenge sometimes because everything that happens in the organization goes through the networking piece. So in the chat room, one of the things you'll notice is somebody asks, what's an IPS again? Because I did not write out what that is. I intentionally left the acronym there. So this is kind of a second type of question. You have to step through two questions really to get to the answer. First, you have to know what an IPS is, and then you have to know what an IPS stops. So let's see. We've got 45 people that have responded to this. Let's flip over and see between those four things, what did people think traditionally commonly stopped by an IPS? Oh, I gotcha. I got some folks on this one. So this is a bit of a challenge. An IPS isn't something we have in our homes. It's not something that we plug in and use all the time. And the definition of an IPS has changed a bit through the years. But if we think traditionally what an IPS is designed to do, an intrusion prevention device is somewhat a device that is looking for a particular vulnerability. Maybe somebody knows that this particular Microsoft operating system is susceptible to a buffer overflow. So I'm going to send some traffic into that device that takes advantage of it and opens up a hole that I can then get in and have administrator access inside of that device. So traditionally, an IPS is going to not be a virus attack. IPSs generally know nothing of viruses. We do have virus scanners that are on our devices. There are some devices that you can plug into the network that will scan and do a network-based antivirus scan. But generally, we don't do the virus scanning on an IPS. Generally, it's done on a proxy, or it's done on the server or the device or a network-based antivirus device. 24 of you, most of you answered distributed denial of service. Not actually correct either. Most of you said, 24 of you said, oh, it's a DDoS, distributed denial of service. And there are some IPSs, and I think this is more of the more recent, but really this is not a traditionally what you'd think of from an IPS perspective. IPSs traditionally don't do denial of service. In fact, I mentioned all these boxes that you as the network team have to plug in. Denial of service boxes is yet another one that you have to plug into the network. There are devices that are specifically designed to identify and stop denial of service, and more specifically, distributed denial of service, which are much, much more difficult to stop. If you look at the basic IPS and how it works, the option for database injection was actually the correct answer. Database injection is a known vulnerability, and IPS devices generally work on signatures. You have to know what the vulnerability looks like to be able to stop it. Denial of services can look like anything. There is no set signature for denial of service, and especially not for a distributed denial of service. So database injection, buffer overflows, Microsoft operating system type vulnerabilities, database vulnerabilities, those are the things that an IPS will stop. Malware phone home is a machine that's already infected. And there are IPSs out in the world that are pretty good at stopping things, but again, you have to know the signatures. And legacy IPSs are they're overloaded as it is with all of these signatures. There are newer devices these days, all-in-one devices that can do many things at one time. So you could plug in a device that does network-based antivirus, denial of service detection and stopping of those, database injection and IPS type vulnerability blocking, and malware phone home all in one box. These are very special designed devices. Generally, they're the much more modern devices. But if we talk about IPS, our answer in this case, database injection. 12 of you were absolutely right along those lines. And we got a question, of course, that prompted that particular query for you, which is, what's the difference between a stateful firewall and an IPS? And we've got a lot of different things, a lot of differences between those two. In fact, most organizations that are really involved in the security side of things will have both of these. They will have a firewall, and these days, all of our firewalls that we use are stateful. If you go back to last month, in the last month's replay, I talk about the difference between a stateless firewall and a stateful firewall. So you might want to go back and look at that. So what's the difference really between a firewall and an IPS? And both of them are filtering those things out. So to some degree, we are indeed filtering, but really at different levels. A firewall is designed to filter out specific, at its most basic level, specific port numbers, specific applications, if you want to look at it that way. So if you wanted to block everyone from using FTP, you can block the FTP ports on your firewall. If you'd like to allow or block someone from using a web connection out to the internet, you could block that port 80 for anyone going out that way. The stateful inspection of a firewall is designed to allow or disallow traffic. And we're talking about normal traffic. We're not talking about the bad traffic. Now, network-based intrusion prevention systems and host-based intrusion prevention systems are designed to look for not normal traffic, abnormal traffic. Traffic that is bad things, that the bad guys are sending down to your machine in the hopes of taking it over, of putting their own code on your system, of getting administrator access, of turning you into a spam bot. That's really bad traffic, and we certainly need to block it. Firewalls generally, the traditional firewall, the legacy firewall, and in the chat room, yes, legacy means old, it means crusty, it means it's got cobwebs all over it. But the traditional idea of a firewall doesn't know anything of the bad things. So we have to have another device on the network called the IPS. And as I mentioned, in some cases, we can squeeze these together. The newer devices will do both a firewall and an IPS all in the same device. Sometimes, and I've already mentioned an IDS. IDS is an intrusion detection system. IPS, intrusion prevention system. Detection obviously isn't going to stop anything. It will tell you, hey, bad guy got in. Doesn't help you very much. Not many people are using IDSs for that very reason. But the IPS, the prevention piece, that's the one where you stop it before it even gets on the network. So that's a pretty important thing to consider when you're looking at that. These devices are usually just boxes that we work with. These boxes they're big. They're enormous type boxes to be able to work with. And I think the intrusion prevention systems can also be software. So if you were wanting to look at something like Snort, that's an intrusion prevention device you can load on your own device. There's even live CDs available. And in many cases, especially on higher end systems, there is hardware that you can work with. And the hardware itself can do all kinds of interesting things because it's really designed for very, very high speed network throughput, because you don't want your security systems to be slowing down the network for everyone else. It's a big reason why some people haven't done that. A lot of organizations will have this right on the host itself. There's software you can put on your system that will load it up, and you can have signatures and block things as they're coming into your computer. A lot like the antivirus might do, but think of it, antivirus that looks at so many other things. And in some cases, it looks at things that are a little bit different than your normal traffic coming through. That's one of those pieces you really get into where you're needing to load up software on somebody's computer. You need to load up a new device that's in the middle of your connection that goes out to the internet. Also, you can stop the bad guys. And a lot of the time I spend during the day is going from place to place. I see these large enterprise networks, and they're just infected with malware these days. There's malware everywhere. So you end up having to first identify it and clean it. But wouldn't it be nice if we could stop it before it even came in? And that's the next generation of security devices that go beyond IPS. They go into antivirus, anti-malware, firewall, IPS, all in one device. That's where the industry is really going. But unless you understand what each of those things does, you can definitely not understand all of it sitting inside a single device. So keep that in mind as you're reading through the Network Plus requirements, and you see load balancers, and you see IPS, and you see proxies, and you see routers. A lot of these things have been combined. In fact, there's a section on the Network Plus that does talk about these all-in-one devices. And that's one of those challenges, of course, is keeping up with the bad guys. They keep changing things all the time. I'll remind you, if you go out to professormesser.com/live, you can, of course, see the chat that's there and participate live. And I've also got the dial-in there, the dial-in number there that you can dial in. It's toll-free, so you can dial in either on your regular phone, or, of course, outside the U.S., you can use that same number and dial in via Skype for absolutely free. I have another question for you, so do not answer this in the chat rooms. But the question is, and I got to find this in my list to see if I have it. Here we go. Which of these, I'll give you a list, which of these in this list would commonly use the UDP protocol? If you've just started getting into networking, you've just started your Network Plus class, I'm now throwing things at you. You're like, what in the world are you talking about? The options for you are web browsing, FTP file transfer, database queries, or voice over IP calls. So I think I'm doing almost all of those on this computer at this very second. So there is certain types of protocols out there, and a reason you would use those protocols. And the specific one I'm interested in finding out about, or finding out what you know about it, is the UDP protocol. UDP is a protocol that's used, and in most cases, you know how it's used. So in which of these cases would it be used? Would it be web browsing? Would it be FTP file transfer? Would it be a database query? Would it be a voice over IP call? You can go to vot.rs to 448978 and be able to vote on what you think UDP would be used for. You get into these questions about how the world is used on these pieces. In fact, I can think of a performance-based question here where there might be a series of protocols on one side and a series of applications on the other side, and you have to match those up. That's a perfect example of what you might get in the latest N10005 performance-based questions. So it's good to know when you're working with this what that might be. Now, I've got the vot.rs. The votes are coming in to 448978. Let's see if I can even show you that. That would be nice. There we go. The questions that have come in are the respondents that have come in. You're now choosing the application that makes the most sense for what you're trying to do. We've got about 42 respondents, so let's see what people have said. Which uses UDP? Oh, didn't fool very many people with that one. I'm not doing a very good job at making this difficult, apparently. It's not web browsing, a few of you said. It's not file transfer. Had 5 people say it was FTP. One person said, it's that database. See, I was trying to hook you in the database. You thought maybe I was going back to that database injection question. Not so much. And boy, in the chat room, I'm really sorry. And people are saying, I just started this. You're throwing stuff at me I've never heard before. That's okay. I'm going to explain it to you in just a moment. Because 40 of you said that's voice over IP. So why is it voice over IP? Why is UDP associated with voice over IP and not any of these other things? And it really has to do with how protocols communicate on the network. The question that came in was from Robert. Robert asked this month, if I show it to you on the screen, can you please explain the difference between a connection-oriented or connectionless type communication? So there's these two things. There's a connection-oriented and connectionless communication on the network. And this is how our two devices might communicate over a network. It really is explaining the methodologies we use to communicate. You can think of it in the raw protocol terms. If we look at something like the TCP protocol, we're going to look at just 2 protocols. So in the chat room, person who said, I just started this, which I have no idea what you're talking about. We're only going to talk about 2 things. We're going to talk about TCP and we're going to talk about UDP. And we're going to talk about those specifically because TCP is what we call a connection-oriented protocol. This is what I think about whenever you call somebody on the phone. TCP is a phone call, and this I'm sort of using this, and it's going to confuse you later, but it's from a human perspective, just go with me. So we pick up the phone, you dial the number, and on the other side, person picks up and says, hello. You say, hello. And they say, how are you? I'm fine. So there's this dance that takes place when you first are talking to somebody, or maybe on the street, you walk up to somebody in the street, go, hello, how are you? Oh, I am fine. How are you? I'm doing great. I have a question for you. There's a flow. You set up a connection. You don't just walk up to somebody and say whatever it is you have to say, a question that you have for them. You don't just start talking to them. You have a hi, how are you? Hello, sir. Can I have a moment of your time? Oh, yes, you may. What do you have for me? Well, I have a question for you. That's TCP. There is this connection that is set up, and because you are setting up these parameters with each other, you're saying, I would like to talk to you. Well, that sounds fine. You can talk to me. Well, great. Here's some things that I have for you. We call that a reliable delivery, because if I say, hi, how are you? You say, hi, I'm fine. I have a question for you. We'll ask your question. My question is this. I'd like to tell you. What? What'd you say? I was just asking you if you happened to see the game last night. So there's this, it's built into the protocol that if you don't hear what somebody might be saying, you can ask and say, I missed that. It got dropped somewhere along the way. I didn't hear it. It's a reliable delivery because the other side can always ask for a replay. I missed that. Can you tell me again? I have no idea what you just said there. Oh, sure. Let me repeat. Did you see the game last night? That makes it very reliable. That's a great protocol. You would think, why wouldn't we just use this for everything? TCP sounds great. This sounds like exactly what I'd like to use for my applications. And in fact, this is what we use for a huge number of our applications. Web browsing, we use TCP. File transfers, we use TCP. Things that we really have to make sure it gets to the other side. And if it doesn't get to the other side's going to tell us it didn't get here. I don't understand. It came in out of order. I had to drop some things on the floor. I was busy doing something else. Can you send it again? Makes perfect sense that we would use that for, I'm going to go back to this. We would use that for web browsing. We would use it for FTP file transfer. We would use that for database queries. Makes perfect sense. So why would you do anything else? TCP sounds awesome. This is exactly what we should be doing with our networks. We want them to be reliable. We want to be able to get an answer if we miss something. Actually, that's not true, is it? There's actually another protocol I mentioned called UDP. UDP it stands for User Datagram Protocol. And by the way, I'm going to go back one here. Whenever you're talking to somebody in the networking world, we never say transmission control protocol. Could you enable the transmission control protocol 80 in your firewall, please? No, we say, could you please enable TCP 80? That'd be great. Thank you. But you still have to know the names. Because I might ask you, user datagram protocol. Such a formal name for this UDP, this user datagram protocol. What a user datagram protocol is the exact opposite. It's connectionless. There's no back and forth. It's like walking up to somebody in the street and saying, "Did you see the game last night? See the game last night? It was good, wasn't it? It was really good. Did you see the game?" There's no hello. There's no how are you. You're just sending it down the line. There's no formal dance. There's no let me tell you that I'm going to tell you something great. I would like you to tell me something. You don't have to go. There's no what we call three-way handshake like TCP has. There's no hi, how are you? Oh, good. Let me tell you some information. This is really more along the lines of I'm just going to send down information. And what's even crazier is I don't really care if it got there. If you missed it, you have no way using the UDP protocol to tell me you missed it. It just gets missed. In fact, I don't know if you got it or not. I have no idea. I'm just sending stuff down the line. I have no earthly idea if you heard any of it. I'm just sending that. If it comes in out of order, there's no numbering. TCP numbers its frames so that if they come in out of order, I can piece them back together. Oh, 1, 2, 7, 8. Wait, let me go back. Okay, here's the others. They came in out of order. Let me move them up and move them around. With UDP, they come in when they come in. And unfortunately, there are quite a number of network configurations that would cause that to happen. A lot of things that would cause that to happen. If things come in out of order, if they get missed, doesn't matter. Now, why would you want to use that? That sounds awful. That sounds horrible. That's miserable. Why would I ever want to use that? Well, a good example, I should not have started off with phone call because a really good example is voice over IP call. The folks who understood UDP say, oh yeah, we use that for VoIP. Why do we use that for a phone call? Wouldn't I want to hear the entire phone call? If I miss something in the phone call, wouldn't I want to catch up? The problem is that when you're listening to a phone call, hundreds and hundreds of frames are incoming every second. You've got tons of data that's coming inbound to your voice over IP handset. And if you drop one of them, the human ear almost doesn't even know you missed it. If you drop a lot of them at one time, it gets a little garbled. But your protocol and the way that real-time voice communication happens, we don't have time to go back and ask for that data because by the time we've asked for the data and had it resent, the conversation's already gone on. You missed your opportunity to fill in the blanks. It's real time. You don't have time to do any of that. It's going right into your ear. This is a bit of a challenge, of course, because now if you miss something, you just miss something. If you've been on voice over IP and it sounds underwater, if you're on your mobile device, because your mobile devices are all a voice over IP type of technology, if you're in a bad area, you're not near an antenna, you'll notice you got bad connection. You're underwater. I don't understand what you're saying. You're dropping out. And there's no way to get that back. It's going way too fast. A lot of video that comes in similar way, although with video, you'll notice there's buffering that takes place. So with video, we kind of can go back as long as it's not a real time. Some video does use UDP, but generally speaking, most video, I think, is using TCP. But it's a mix. It depends on the video infrastructure that you're using. Now, the question in the chat room, someone asked, so does the end user get to decide that then? Does the end user get to decide UDP versus TCP? Nope. Have you ever? I haven't. The developer of the application gets to decide how they want to communicate across the network. That's completely invisible to you, and you have no control over it. The application has to be built to use one of those protocols. It has to be developed and programmed with all of the things that are necessary to be able to use that piece. So you really don't have a way to do that. There's no way to have that happen. Another question in the chat room said, so would this cause a lot of delay then? Would TCP kind of be delayed to do things like that? And there is a bit of a challenge with using UDP. There's a little bit of overhead because there's a conversation that has to take place. And I send data down the line, and the end station sends me back acknowledgments every now and then to tell me, hey, I got that much. Oop, I missed something. Hey, can you resend something? Yes, I got that piece coming in. Those acknowledgments go back and forth in both directions. You have to keep track of all those things with TCP. So if you're doing file transfers, there is a bit of overhead that TCP causes that slows things down. There are studies on the internet of people that have done to tweak different settings. Maybe you want your frame size to be very big. There's this thing called jumbo frames. If you're on gigabit networks, you can make your frames very big so you can send big chunks of data through the network and get those bigger chunks of data and then have a TCP response, which improves your overall throughput. I have a network address storage that's in my studio here. It's behind all of this nonsense that's on my desk, and the network address storage is connected via gigabit Ethernet, and that's where I put all of my videos. And all of that storage is connected to my machines and through my switch on jumbo frames. If there's a setting in there you configure to say, I want to use jumbo frames, because TCP has that overhead associated with it. Now, TCP doesn't necessarily wait. TCP is smart enough. It's not just a, hi, okay, I got it. Here's some more data. Okay, I got it. One station will send a few things down the line. Here's a bunch of data. I'm just going to keep sending it. And maybe every 3 or 5th frame, send me back an acknowledgement. So it's not quite as inefficient as you might think. But it does require a back and forth for that piece. So you do run into those things. It absolutely makes a difference when you're dealing with TCP or UDP. I did have a question that came in from AG. And AG asked, what would be some great practical applications to practice and reinforce things learned in Network Plus? This is probably one of my most requested things that come in. The most popular questions I get is, there's performance-based. It's not just multiple choice anymore. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do now that it's not multiple choice any longer? That's a bit of a challenge. I'm going to go to the CompTIA website, and we're going to look at this in just a moment, and we're going to step through it. The CompTIA website has a lot of great information on it. I'm going to go to the certification section. I realize this is kind of small on everyone's screen. I'll zoom it up a bit so you can see it. I'm going to go to the certification, get certified. Let's go to Network Plus. And they even tell you on the Network Plus page what you can expect to have in front of you. There are a maximum of 100 questions of multiple choice and performance-based. It's not just multiple choice questions any longer. There are 90 minutes to take the exam. You have to get a 720 on a scale of 100 through 900. So that's not 72%. In fact, these aren't percentages, although CompTIA doesn't share how they grade the exam. We pretty much understand that every question is worth a different number of points. So that's why you have to get a 720. So you never know exactly how many questions you need to get right. You can't go through your list and go, well, I know I got that one. I know I got that one. I know I got that one. I definitely passed. You don't know. All the questions you got right may be worth a very little amount of points. So you're never quite certain until you hit that final button on the piece. There's always a question about that final button. So one of the things that I recommend is to try these things out yourself. Try working at the command line. Do your own pings. Do your own MBT stats. Do your own trace routes. Try to get a feel for how to do this at the command line. One of the problems you have, though, is some of these things deal with DNS. They deal with doing this across a network. You want to be able to capture packets. You want to be able to look at those to really understand how it works. And not everyone has a lab in their house. Maybe you just have a laptop. It can be a bit of a challenge. There are live practice labs out on the internet. You'll find these at professormesser.com/netlabs. There's a free trial that you can use for this. And I've got some special pricing for my friends at GTS Learning to be able to use these practice labs. It is a remarkable set of labs that are out there. In fact, I'll try to bring mine up on the screen so you can really get a feel for what they look like. The labs themselves are completely virtualized. They are set up so that you can run everything across the internet. It's not in your place. You don't have to load any software on your computer at all. You just have to have a web browser. You log into the virtual environment. I'm going to log into my virtual environment here. And I have a Network Plus course that I've taken. And all of these courses are set up. If I want to take a course on TCP and port scanning, we just talked about TCP, so this might be a good one to talk about. Here is the configuration. Let's go back to that picture. So there's a server, a gateway, a router, a web server, and a client. And here are the machines. The actual machines are here. If I want to power every single one of them on, it's like turning on all of these boxes in my lab, except they're being turned on across the internet. And now they're going to set up and get ready to run for me. The labs themselves, now I can step through the exercise. Let's go to exercise number 1. What do? I need to look at TCP handshake, ensure you have powered on the devices, connect to the server, add these features. It takes you step by step with screenshots to exactly what you need to be able to do. And this says I need to configure a telnet server and then configure it to start up and then go to my client and start Wireshark. So I'm starting to do the packet captures on a machine that's located somewhere across the internet. This all works in Java, but there's also configurations that work in HTML5. And I think I'm using the HTML5 one here. So my gateway just started up. It has a green next to it. You can see that gateway there. It connects to it. I am using the Java side, but I can use the HTML5 as well if I wanted to do that because I'm in a browser that supports that. Here's the gateway, and I can also connect to and use the client, use the servers, use the other. In fact, the server just came up. That's where we start the whole lesson is on the server side to be able to use that. It's a Windows Server 2008 R2. It says to start up and run it from this other view. It's a remote desktop session. It's not even at my place. So nice to have that there. There's a special pricing that I got from GTS Learning that if you wanted to try this out, you can use it, I think, an hour for free. Try it out, see if you like it, see if it works for what you're trying to do. You can also, the special pricing, $99, and you get it with Freestyle, which is a Q&A and effectively a book that has my videos embedded within it. And if you do that, you can do things like go to the lab, start your client machine up. Looks like this is Windows XP. It has Wireshark in it. I'll start up Wireshark. And this is very small for you guys to see. There we go. We'll start up Wireshark on this machine. This is also, here we go, Wireshark. Let's start a capture. Just let her rip. I don't have an interface. Let's choose an interface. Let's choose this one up here. That's I think that's probably the default, and start her up. Now I'm capturing packets across the network. So that's how I do it. I don't have to load Wireshark on my machine. I don't have to have anything running. Don't have to do any of those pieces. I can run it all in this virtual environment. When I'm done, I just close my browser. All done. No extra things. You can expect there's probably going to be quite a number of performance-based questions at the beginning of your certification. You'll probably, and people are saying, I got 3 of them. I got 5 of them. I got 7 questions at the beginning. So you might get quite a few performance-based questions. Some of them expect you to be able to do multiple, to be able to match multiple things together, like I mentioned earlier. Some of them are command line. You have to type something at the command line and make it happen. So you have to think about how that's going to work for you. So consider that. And if you go out to professormesser.com/netlabs, it also helps support Professor Messer and helps the folks that I know over at GTS Learning, a great group of folks that are building these training materials for us to be able to use. And I appreciate their support of our Network Plus study groups. Well, of course, there is an acronym this month that I have for you. The acronyms that we get every month, and as I mentioned, a lot of acronyms in the Network Plus certification, just a ton of acronyms that we have to pour through. The one that came in this month, and don't answer in the chat room, the question is, what is RIP? You can vote on this particular question by going out to vot.rs. Oh, it's not number 6. Did I even make one of these? Don't go to 6. That's wrong. I don't have it here. I erased it. I'm going to give you another one. We're going to do another one. It's changed. It's what is DHCP? I'm going to change this really quick to something completely different. And then we're going to talk about RIP, of course. Here we go. This is live television, people. We're going to do this. What is DHCP? And you need to go to 865575. It's not this. In fact, I don't have anything to show you. There we go. That's the beauty of live streams, everyone. So what is DHCP? 865575. Did I get it right? Yes. What is DHCP? And you can tell me what DHCP is. It is a method of automatic network addressing. Is it a storage media file system? Is it a memory transfer protocol, or is it a blogging engine? While I'm talking about that, you're welcome to call in and berate me publicly on the phone number as well. Remember that that's there. Have that there for you Skype folks. that would like it there. Yes, voter's ID can't be found. Indeed, it can't be found. The 865575 is the VOT.RS number. 86557. Well, I can just flip to it now because you don't have. In fact, I'll put up a QR code. Here, we'll do this. I could pop this up on my screen and take you to that very thing. See? I'm thinking about you. There we go. So you can go, what is DHCP? This one's a little bit easier. So those of you that have started off in this world of network and Network Plus certification that are just getting going and have no idea, I think you may be able to figure this one out and to figure out which way to go with this piece. I think that would be useful. So let's see who we've got come in. We've got 33 respondents so far. Let's see what people have said. And the answers are, I fool nobody. Hey, we're Network Plus, right? It's something network related. It's a method of automatic network addressing. And you need to understand how DHCP works for your Network Plus certification. So that's an important one to consider as well. It's not a file system. It's not a memory transfer protocol. It's not a blogging engine. It's not any of those things. Well, enough of DHCP. At least we got to do one, right? We mixed it up. We got to at least participate in that one. The question that came in, though, is what is RIP? What is RIP? RIP stands for Routing Information Protocol. This is something that's been around for quite some time. 1988. I had one of my first wide area networks, one of my first local and wide area networks used RIP to be able to communicate. Now, RIP is set up so that everybody on the network knows how to get everywhere else. This is a challenge. If you have a wide area network that goes to Ohio, it goes to California, it goes to Walla Walla, Washington, it goes to Canada, it goes all these places. You have remote sites everywhere. How would those remote sites know how to get back to a database server that's in your data center in Miami? It becomes a little bit of a challenge. These routing protocols are used so that all of those devices out there know the path back. It's like a map to your network. The RIP rather, the DHCP on my screen. Let's get rid of DHCP. The RIP is something we call an interior gateway protocol. It's used primarily on the inside of your local network. We don't use RIP across the internet is really what that means. We don't use it to communicate back and forth to a third party. It's used within our network only. It is a distance vector protocol, which means it determines how to get where it needs to go based on the number of hops, the number of routers it has to go through. It's kind of a dumb protocol. It doesn't know. One of those hops may be over a satellite link, but there may be another way to get to that database server that's an extra hop away, but it's over a high-speed metro Ethernet. Well, gosh, it should have made more sense to go the extra hop rather than go all the way up into space and back down again and probably waste bandwidth because non-terrestrial links generally cost a lot more money. So probably not the best kind of protocol to use for that, but for maybe things within a building or things that don't have different routes to be able to get there. RIP worked pretty well for us. There's also a RIP version 2. You have to know both of those for the Network Plus certification. It was updated because the original RIP only knew classful IP addressing. So RIP v2 allows us to use CIDR block notation to be able to use different sized subnets to be able to communicate. For those of you just kind of starting out, you'll go through a whole subnetting section, and that will make a lot more sense. Our RIP section happens after that for those of you. But I mentioned it looks at things like the network address, the number of hops, the destination of where you're going to. And it's a pretty popular routing protocol, or at least it certainly used to be. It used to be the most popular. These days, a lot of organizations simply statically route everything, or they use a more knowledgeable set of routing protocols. And there's quite a number of routing protocols that you are going to have to know to be able to take advantage of this. This is one of those things that really is a bit of a challenge. And in the chat room, they're making fun of me because I messed up the RIP and the DHCP. You won't have to take a picture. It stays in the replay. I have absolutely no pride whatsoever. You will get to watch the Professor Messer screw up over and over and over again, and we will learn to enjoy it. So I have some questions that came in about the exam itself, because the Network Plus exam has its own challenges with trying to understand what should I know and what should I not know about the Network Plus certification. And this is from Hamdi, who sent, what is the importance of studying Network Plus? Why would I even care about the Network Plus certification? I think it's a valid question. I think that's one of those things that when you start working with certifications in general, first you have to wonder, is this even worthwhile at all? And it's a valid question to ask. A certification is only as good as what you are going to be able to do with it. And a lot of times a certification is specifically requested by an organization that you are going to, that you're going to work on doing something like interviewing for a job. And they say, well, for this job, you need the Network Plus certification. You absolutely need to have that available. It's an important part of this job. I need to understand that you at least have those concepts grasped, and you understand if I talk to you about ARP, you're going to know what I'm talking about. That if I talk to you about RIP or DHCP, you're going to know what I'm talking about. And I understand you may not have ever configured RIP in a router. That's okay. We'll take care of you there, but I need you to understand what that is. Great. That's what the certification might be used for. Another important part of Network Plus, I think, and this is really from someone who's been doing networking for a long time, is the network is the middle of everything. If you are in servers, data centers, you're working on databases, you deal with web browsing and web servers, you write the code on the web servers, you build applications, it all touches a network. So the more you know about how the network operates, the better you'll be able to put everything into context. Everything starts and ends at the network. So if you have a very good grasp of how the network operates, you understand how those protocols go across the network, you understand exactly how all of this works, then you're good to go. You have you can now really build on everything that you're doing. So I think if you're someone who's looking at the Network Plus and trying to figure out, should I do this certification or not? Those are two reasons why. Now, if maybe sometimes you just like to do it for personal benefit. Yes, I took the certification. I've learned something new and I got my cert. That's fine too. That's a great idea. Sometimes you're in a position and there's no job associated with this. Maybe the Network Plus doesn't fit what you're trying to do. If you're someone who's trying to get a new job or a different career or move to another organization, I recommend that you go into some of the online career builder, the dice.com, the online job posting sites. Go out to those, maybe the regional ones in your area as well, and see what people are asking for. For a network administrator, what are they looking for? Do they want the Network Plus certification or do they want something else? Because there's a lot of certifications out there. You should find the one that makes sense for what you are individually, what you are personally trying to be able to accomplish with yourself and your career. So let's go to a question from CY, who asked, do I have to memorize the OSI model seriously for my exam? And I think I answered some of this earlier. Boy, not only do you have to memorize the OSI model, you have to memorize a lot more than the OSI model. And let's have a look at what I mean by that. And I mention this for everybody. People are still coming up to me and saying, I didn't do well on my exam. I didn't pass it. I have to take it again. They asked me about DHCP. I had no idea they were going to ask me about DHCP. And I asked, well, did you download the objectives? And they said, download the what? I don't know what you're talking about. Is there, yes, because CompTIA will tell you everything that you need to know to be able to take your exam. And let's go out to CompTIA's website. Let me flip over and get CompTIA's website back up and running again. They've actually done a very good job on CompTIA's website at pointing you to the right place. If you recall, we went out to CompTIA, we went to get certified, and we just chose Network Plus, and it took us to this page. Now, right on the page itself, right in the middle of the page are big buttons, and those big buttons are view exam objectives, and probably the second most popular question I get, where can I view some sample questions? On the CompTIA.org site. Download the exam objectives. I'm telling you, download them, understand them, know them, print them out, use them as a checklist. Do everything you can to be able to understand what's in there, because when you download them, you will get this PDF file. Let's make this nice and big so we can really see what's going on. This PDF has exactly the domains that you'll need to know for your Network Plus certification. You will be able to see, for instance, number one, your networking concepts. Compare the layers of the OSI and TCP/IP models. And the OSI, you need to understand layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, layer 5, layer 6, layer 7. In the TCP/IP model, you need to understand the network interface, internet layer, transport layer, application layer. And then the next section, 1.2, classify how applications, devices, and protocols relate to the OSI model. So this was a real question that came in that said, do I need to memorize the OSI model? And my answer is immediately going to be, you didn't download the exam objectives. Go out and do that immediately, because the first thing it tells you is you have to know the OSI model. This is really going to do you this is a great thing to do. This is going to serve you well to be able to download this, because it is this is 23 pages long. It has such detail in it. It tells you every port number you need to know. I've seen some of these books that you buy off the shelf that list out 100 protocols and 100 port numbers. Why would you go through the pain? In fact, I see people sending hate mail like, this is stupid. I have to go all these 100 protocols. I'm going to spend forever trying to learn this. This is what a waste of time. And I would agree, if you had to memorize 100 protocols and their port numbers, enormous waste of time. But you don't. All you have to know is these. I have people all the time that will tell me, how come I have to know how to configure this router from this manufacturer to enable this feature for Network Plus? I'm like, that's nowhere in here. Download the objectives. And you'll know exactly, after reading through this, exactly what's expected of you, because it goes into intricate detail. Microsoft doesn't give you this for their certifications. The router manufacturers don't give you this level of detail for their certifications. This is relatively unique to be able to have this level of detail. So absolutely go out and absolutely download the exam objectives. It will serve you very, very well. A question from Gabriel came in that said, how much does it benefit someone to know some of the older technologies if they're not being used? I think he meant in your current networking environment. Should have put a notation there. Should have corrected that. But there's some old things. Let's get back to this list. A lot of people will see these old things in the certification. I'm going to find one that's in here. And it really is a different perspective. There's wireless here. Okay, here we go. This is a very good example. So categorize WAN technology types and properties. And there's things that you really don't see much anymore. T1, E1, although there's some legacy things out there. Here's some more esoteric. WiMAX. Frame relay. Boy, you don't see those being sold new anymore. People don't buy those, at least not in the United States. And that's where I go back to this question, where the question is, how much does it benefit somebody to know some of the older technologies if they're not being used in your current network environment? I'm going to fix this on the fly for Gabriel. There we go. If they're not being used in your network environment. Well, the thing is, it is good to know some of the older technologies, but in the case of things like T1, E1, that's a technology that is still being used in some environments to connect up sites because there's not much else there. But then you get down to something like WiMAX. That's a wireless technology that was supposed to be really the next big high-speed mobile technology in the United States. And it really hasn't been well deployed. I think LTE, which is right underneath it, really was the thing that everybody gravitated to. And I mean AT&T, Sprint gravitated to, although there are some significant installations of WiMAX in regional pockets in the United States. Outside the United States, there are some countries that have done a huge deployments of WiMAX. So although it doesn't apply to you where you happen to be, I guarantee you, if you get into a large organization that has sites around the world, you're going to run into everything. The United States may be way ahead of the curve. They're not doing much frame relay. I can bet you in other countries, frame relays the still in place. They're still using it. There's a lot of different pieces that are there. So don't be dismayed when you're looking through this and thinking, this seems kind of old and played out. It really isn't. Everything that's in the Network Plus exam, I can find somewhere running today on someone's network. A good example of this, for instance, if I go back up to the networking piece of this, network media and topologies. I think there's actually another piece that's in here. Let me find the Ethernet pieces. So if I look at, here we go. We have to know all the Ethernet types. Compare and contrast all these different LAN technologies. And they have all these Ethernet technologies. Notice there's no token ring. There's no FDDI. The legacy stuff's not in here. I think sometimes people are looking at very, very old exam questions and saying, why do I have to know token ring? Well, you don't. So make sure, again, you know your exam objectives. That's a pretty big thing to know those exam objectives, because you don't want to have to study things that don't make any sense for what you need to know. And this is updated every 3 years. So a year from now, we'll have another set. I found that when we went from the older Network Plus to this Network Plus, it was probably about an 80 to 90% overlap. Networking technology doesn't change dramatically. It's not like CPUs that are inside of workstations that we're changing them out so quickly. Ethernet is Ethernet is Ethernet. Maybe we'll add on some faster Ethernet technologies. Maybe we'll add on some additional fiber technologies, but it's going to be effectively Ethernet. So that's one of those things that really helps when you're running into those pieces and trying to understand what to do. Now, you'll notice on this Network Plus study group, I didn't do any subnetting. And I tend not to do a lot of subnetting on my study groups. What I really need to do is just allocate perhaps an entire study group for subnetting, but I think that sends the wrong signal. If you look at your exam objectives, in fact, since I still have this up, I think this is why I don't do a lot of subnetting in my study groups. I'm going to pull this up. So our networking concepts, if we go down to section 1.3, is a piece called subnetting. But watch this scroll. Going section 3, section 4, section 5. So we're all the way through domain 5 and the very end of it. We're already down on page 14. Back on page 2 was subnetting. That's why I don't spend a lot of time on it. It's a very complex thing to have to do. There's binary math involved. It takes a while to get it, and you should know it because it's in your exam objectives. But I don't want to give you the impression that you should be spending days trying to learn subnetting when in fact you might not get any questions. You might get one. You might get two. I can't imagine you get more than 2 questions in subnetting on your Network Plus. So should you spend days doing subnetting and neglect all of these other topics? Spend some time on it, get the idea behind it, and then keep it going. And if you have time to go back and really get subnetting down really, really, really well, then I think you should do that. And if you'd like to do that, use some of the tools that are out here. Look at my videos to be able to do that. And you should also go out to my link of the moment, which is subnetting.net. I really like this one. There's a lot of different subnetting testing sites out there. I played around with this one yesterday, and I really like the questions that I was being asked. It doesn't ask the same kind of question every time. It wants a fill in the blank. It's not a multiple choice, so you have to work for it. And they added a practice, and then there's a game mode to see how fast you can do it and how accurate you can be when you're doing it, which is kind of fun to be able to do that. And I like adding that little piece of fun, and there's high scores, and I'm not even going to try to get high scores. You get one of these things with subnetting is it almost becomes second nature to you. So, but I don't work well under pressure. so I tend not to do things by the clock. One of the things, here's the little secret though. Here's the little secret about subnetting is that everybody who does subnetting, everybody who's in a networking role and is doing subnetting has to think about it. In fact, most of the time we're doing something that's easy to calculate. And what you'll find is if you have a certain network that's subnetted a certain way, you'll learn that one. I know /26 subnet cold because I used to manage a /26 subnet, /26 network. I know it. I got it. I don't even have to think about it. If I'm asked a /26 question, I know the answer right off the top of my head. And you get to be that way with all of the types of subnets after a while. But it takes a little bit of practice to get it there. It's not something that happens immediately. You don't pick it up and here's the definition, here's how it's used in a sentence. It's not that easy. It takes a little more work, but I like subnetting.net. I think it's a good one. So if you're going to go out to the subnetting and try to learn subnetting really well and get some extra questions, look at my videos, get a feel for it, and then try subnetting.net. I think you'll like it. Well, we've come to the end of yet another Network Plus certification. You can, of course, a lot of people will send me messages saying, how can we help you? I don't take donations as part of what we do at ProfessorMesser.com, but one of the things that's really, really helpful for me, more than you may even realize, is subscribing or following us. If you subscribe to us on YouTube at ProfessorMesser.com/YouTube. Follow us on Twitter, ProfessorMesser.com/Twitter, /Google+, /Facebook/Wiki for our Wiki. In fact, if you'd like to add things to the website, you want to participate, you want to donate, you can donate some time and add things to the Wiki to fill in some of these gaps about why DHCP is different than RIP, for instance. I want to also thank GTS Learning for giving us that special pricing on their NetLabs. You can find that at ProfessorMesser.com/NetLabs, and for being a great sponsor for us. And of course, thanks to all of you. Without these questions, we would not be able to do our Network Plus study group. Well, I do these every month. If you'd like to also look up ProfessorMesser.com/calendar, I try to update those from time to time. And of course, if you are following us on the Twitter or the Google+, you will also get notifications of when we have these as well. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you, chat room, for being there. Thanks for sending me your questions. We'll see you next month on the Professor Messer Network Plus Study Group.